You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 45. Today we welcome in Joshua Goldberg, principal lawyer at Joshua Goldberg Law, PC, in Toronto, Ontario. How are you tonight, Josh?
I'm good. How are you doing, Ben?
Good. Thanks for joining us. Really cool to have you. I know we've been trying to plan for a little while, so I'm happy to have you on. How are things down in Ontario, in Toronto?
They're okay. We're slowly getting through COVID. I think the reopening is taking longer than most people would like. I personally miss restaurants and stores and things like that. So anyway, it's not too bad though. Like I can't complain. Yeah. Compared to Spanish flu, I think we have it pretty easy.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting there as a whole, So good to have you. We did feature you in March. It's almost the end of May as of this recording of episode 45 of the Lawyer Stories podcast. We featured you March 25th, 2021. You started your story really interesting because you talked about you took a little time off before law school and you took this trip. I personally, if people go out and look at me on Instagram at I know it's not about me, but I'm going to throw this in there. Hashtag Benny's East Coast Tour. You will see that I took a 3-week trip myself, but you took a 5-year trip. You went to, let's see here. You were in Asia, Australia, and Africa. So so tell me, did you know at that time you were going to be a lawyer and you were like, I'm going to take this trip before I get started?
So, yeah, I was always hoping to become a lawyer or go to law school. I was one of those dorky kids who, when I was 7 years old, I prefer to watch LA Law and Law and Order rather than, cartoons like all the other kids. So I always wanted to be a lawyer. Okay. I didn't know if I'd actually become one because I had a pretty tumultuous high school years. I didn't think I'd have the grades, and then after university, things went well, and then I said, what, fuck it, I'm going to take a few years off and see the world. And I'd started learning Chinese, so that was a big part of it. I wanted to spend some time really getting really into the country.
Where did you start learning Chinese?
So I started my first year of my second year of undergrad. I did a full year abroad in Taiwan studying Chinese. It was part of my undergrad degree because I was studying Asian history.
Wow.
And when I came back, I was like, well, I'm not ready for this to be over. I still want to go to law school one day, but not ready to just be like, okay, well, on to the next. So I planned to go away with my best friend when we both graduated from university. And we kind of made it so that we'd have lengthy periods of travel, like 6 months, and then we'd settle down in the city in China, and I'd study for 6 months or 9 months, and then we'd pick up again, and then we moved around a lot. It didn't we didn't spend as much time in China as we planned, but it was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. But you were in Australia too, right?
Yeah.
So that. Okay, so and Africa, wow, what was that like? That must have been incredible.
Africa, it's not as I didn't see as much Africa as it sounds like. I went to Egypt, so that was the extent of my African tours. But it was before everything kind of fell apart there, and it's an amazing country.
Oh my goodness!
Amazing people, beautiful place. Cairo is an amazing city.
Oh man, those are places that I've only read about, but I can imagine how beautiful they are. So. You had good foresight, Josh. You were like, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be a lawyer anyway. I'm going to take this 5 years and go travel. And I've studied Chinese for a while. Now I'm going to I really want to keep that going. So you went there and you did that. So you had some amazing experience, right?
Yeah. And in law school too, actually, I spent a semester in China.
Did you see people that you knew? Did you go back to like a community that you were familiar with?
No, well, I went back to Beijing where I had previously lived, but at that point, like I didn't know anybody there. It was just an exchange program for one semester. And I was thinking, I for the first like 2 years of law school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I kept thinking, oh, I want to do something international that involves like China and Canada. So I thought, oh, this would be a good way to look into that and see if I'm interested.
Yeah. Wow. But, okay. So that's
not how things ended up going.
So then you went to University of Ottawa for law school for the first 2 years, and then University of Toronto for 1 year. So why did you pivot from Ottawa to Toronto? Where did you go undergrad, by the way?
Concordia.
Concordia, I've heard of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's in Montreal. It's like one of the two big English schools.
Love Montreal, by the way. I know you grew up there. Love Montreal. Great time. I've been there probably 3 or 4 times, but like way long ago, 15, 20 years ago. Okay. So what made you make the pivot from Ottawa to Toronto for law school?
So it's a long story. So actually in my second year of law school, I did that exchange that I mentioned in China.
Yep.
And when I was in China, actually, the doctor, like I had passed out one day, I went to the hospital. Doctor did a scan. Turned out I had a very serious brain tumor, a benign brain tumor though.
Wow.
So I flew home, like I didn't finish that semester. I flew home, had surgery over the summer, had radiation over the summer. And I went back to school the following, like I only took a semester off pretty much, but because I didn't complete that semester, I had an extra semester and a few courses left after my, like when I should have been finished. My friends all graduated like 6 months before me, but I had to catch up. So.
Wow. Okay. So then you went to Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. My plan was always to move to Toronto eventually. I didn't really want to.
Okay.
Didn't imagine myself staying in Ottawa. So I figured, we're planning on going next year. All my friends have already moved back anyways because they graduated last year. So I said, fuck it, I'm just gonna pick up and move here with my spouse. And we moved here. I finished my semester.
Good.
And then articled.
That was it. Yeah, you articled. So tell me, like, okay, so you're in Toronto. What was your first job like at a law school? Was it your firm, or did you have jobs before?
No.
We get on to like starting your own firm, but.
So I worked. So this was actually during law school. It was a summer job, and I worked for this firm with these amazing 2 lawyers, Paul Jewell and Tina Radamisis.
Okay.
I was terrible though at the time. I was a nightmare. They put up with me, but
you were
I was recovering.
I was
recovering from brain surgery, and to be honest, I really wasn't ready to go back to work. But I stupidly pushed myself.
This is like this is like this is probably ridiculous. I believe that there are no bad questions, only some bad answers. Like because people are curious. I'm not saying you're going to give me a bad answer, but. I just, if I ask this question, I wanted to come across like, I'm really actually curious. So like after you said brain surgery, right? So like, what like symptom, like if you're at work, like, do you have any like things that?
No, it's completely resolved. I haven't had any, like it's gone. Like I haven't had an MRI or.
No, but like your first
symptoms.
You were saying
my first job, I wasn't having symptoms anymore at that point. It was just, I was still recovering from radiation, like any kind of major surgery. It really takes a long time for your body to recover. And I was still just much too slow to be working full time.
Okay.
And they were very patient with me, but
were you tired?
I really should have, I was just tired all the time. Like I really shouldn't have started working yet. I should have given myself another year before I really got into that. I pushed myself to get back to school.
How did you find them, by the way? Like, how did you find this first job? I mean, they sound like really.
I guess how did it happen again? They weren't actively looking for someone, and I got it. It was some kind of arrangement through the school where they paid for part of the.
It's amazing.
The internship, and then the firm paid for the other half of it, and. It's sort of arranged through the school, and it was in like at that time I was interested in. I had already decided like what I wanted to do, personal injury or insurance defense, and
Okay.
yeah, so that's where I went. Anyways, that was just a one-off experience. I think I've adequately made up for my bad summer interning.
Okay. So you interned for a summer with them? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Do
Yeah.
you still keep in touch with them?
Yeah. Actually, I still have, Paul Jewell unfortunately passed away, but Tina is actually like I still keep in touch with her. She's a lovely person, and
Very good.
like she knows. She was very considerate and put up with me.
So, okay. So you did that, and then like, what was your next job? Is that when you went into your own firm or no?
No, that was so that's quite a ways away. So after that, I had a year more of law school, and then I
Oh, I see.
articled at a firm like a smaller boutique personal injury firm.
Can you tell everybody what it's the article? Because like I think we do have
Oh,
a
sorry.
UFA. No. We've definitely heard it. We've featured everybody all around the world on Lawyer Stories. For me personally, I want to know like if you could define article, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like what does that mean?
No, not at all. So it's when you graduate law school, in order to get called to the bar, you have to obviously write the exams that
Right.
I assume they have everywhere, but they also require 10 months of interning as a lawyer under under a lawyer. So you need to do 10 months of work as essentially like a law student in training.
Okay.
Or we call it like the other term for it is a
That's
student
amazing.
at law.
And they help you find that in law school?
No.
Oh, they don't.
I mean, they sort of do, but like, in my experience, the career services departments tend to be very focused on the big firm jobs and not really focused and they don't really have much resource and time to help people who are not going into that, because that's really a small fraction, right?
Right.
But obviously they provide a lot of money and funding and whatnot. So, the career services departments tend to be very preferential to those. And then when it comes to the other stuff, they really weren't. Like I did it all on my own, to be honest. Like nobody really helped me.
Yeah, that's a story within itself, and I totally relate to that. Not to call anybody out, but I never had help finding any sort of legal job. I mean, so sometimes we got to just hustle, and you're better off for it occasionally. And
there you go.
And look at you. So then, fast forward a little while. Like, how many years later did you find your firm?
I started my firm 10 years after that. So this was all 10 years ago. Like when I got my articling job, and then I was at that firm for 5 years. Then I moved to another firm for 5 years.
What were you doing? What kind of law at that firm, Josh?
I did almost exclusively personal injury.
Okay.
And disability and a little bit of employment.
And that's so okay. So what made you say to your, this is a big question. So take a sip of water. What made you say to yourself? What made you say to yourself, I want to start my own firm?
I had thought about it on and off for a really long time. I never knew if, like you never know what's on the other side, and if it's going to happen, if it's going to actually like be a success or whatnot. But throughout COVID, I had actually, so just as kind of part of this, about 9 months before I opened my firm, I had just moved jobs. I had just started a job on literally the first day of the lockdown. Like literally the first day was my first day at this firm. And I was there for 9 months. It's a great firm. Like I have nothing negative to say about them, but it just really wasn't me.
So was it March, like during COVID, when COVID started? Okay.
March 15th was my first day there.
Okay.
Or March 16th.
That's when stuff went up in flames. Okay.
Exactly. So I started there, and it turned out not to be for me. And I had, for a long time, I had thought, you know what I'd really like to try doing a virtual law firm, because lawyers spend so much bloody money on having office space to look fancy for their clients. And, it's just amazing the amount of overhead and poor planning that goes into building law firms. And I always kind of had this thought, maybe I could do it on the cheap, and not on the cheap in terms of like the services I provide, but in terms of, like I don't need a physical office, especially right now. And that actually is also what, what kind of said, oh, maybe now's the right time. Like for 9 months after.
What was it about the firm that you joined March 15th, 2020 that you were just like, this isn't me?
I guess there was a little bit more micromanaging than I'm used to.
All right.
Like at 10 years, I was used to making my own decisions, and I respect the way they did it, because it was the struggle between a lot of firms in my field is, between giving too much in oversight and not enough oversight to their lawyers who handled their files. And I've seen the opposite happen, where the firm doesn't pay enough attention and they end up with huge messes.
Wow.
So they did a great job for that, to keep track of what they were doing. But it was just, for example, I wasn't allowed to issue a statement of claim without having one of the partners approve it, and that kind of stuff is like, for me, it's like it's a basic thing that I've been issuing my own claims since I was 2 years out. So
okay.
Anyway,
I heard bigger firm. Was it a bigger firm like known?
It was, yeah.
So do they do bigger firms do things differently, do you think, than solo practitioners? Like I heard they add like an extra 30 pages and stuff, like when maybe you don't necessarily.
I don't know. I don't think so. To be honest,
Okay.
It really is like the firm I worked for. I'm not going to say their name, but they are really a great firm. They've got a good reputation, and but that's just their way of doing things. And like I think everybody has their own works better or worse with a different style. Like my style is just not that. Like I'm much more relaxed. I don't sweat the like the unimportant details. I try and focus on the big picture, and I didn't like being micromanaged. So
okay, so you basically were like, okay, it's time to start my own firm. So okay.
Yeah. And with COVID going on, I realized like my long-term idea was, maybe I can do this on the cheap without having to invest in like a $10,000 a month office. And then after 9 months of practicing without seeing one client in person, I realized, hell yeah, this is absolutely possible.
I mean, do you think lawyering will shift that way, like more conversations like this? I mean, I think it's very interesting. I think people can save a lot of time and effort, honestly.
I totally agree, and I think that in some fields it will, but I think a lot of lawyers are very old school, and they're not used to giving their employees or trusting their employees enough to just let them work from home. Like like there was always a lot of I just felt everywhere I've worked, there's been always trust issues when it comes to like remote working, or like it's something that I've seen in many firms, like where there was not arguments, but where people wanted to have it implemented, and that was always the big thing that was they were reluctant to, because they just don't trust the employees to be working when they're at home. And I think even though this should have proved that it is absolutely possible, from what I've seen, like lawyers are still really pushing to get people back in the office, at least in certain fields. Like I think in insurance companies, for example, in-house counsel, I think they're going to be like way more open to downsizing their offices and doing more work from home almost exclusively, 90% of the time. But and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe insurance defense too, to some degree, does that. But I think personal injury is not. I don't know. I don't really see it being as forward thinking as that. I am. I mean, I'm like my assistant since and my law clerk since we had a. I guess your lockdowns aren't in sync with our lockdowns, but we had we opened up around last summer, and then we're fairly open for about 5 months, I think, and then we went on another very lengthy lockdown that we're still technically under. And since then, like I could bring my law clerk in and my assistant in, but I chose not to, just because they're doing good work from home. I'm not going to micromanage them as long as they're getting the job done and they're doing it well.
And they just email you assignments? Is that what happens? Like they just send you over?
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of work, so sometimes it's not something they need to like email me personally. But yeah, like If I ask them to draft something, they'll draft and email it to me, and or make a call. I don't know.
So
Lots of different little things.
So do you not have you? So are you working from home right now? You're operating your firm. That's amazing.
We have, so I actually have an office, but it's just my spouse's parents are Chinese, and they're stuck in China. They own a condo in the same building that we live in.
Okay.
So they're not using it at the moment. And they're
in China. Where are they? China, you said?
They're in China, and they're like, they can't come back. They're because of COVID, they won't be back for at least another year. So we decided to make this a temporary office just because we had the extra space. But we could have done it just from home too. But we were lucky to have this extra space.
So the extra space, the office you're using, is the parents' apartment. That's amazing. Wow. In the same building that you're in. Wow. Okay. There you go. That's amazing.
So it worked out. We've been very lucky, knock on wood.
So you talk about in your lawyer story that we featured you March 25th, 2021. I've mentioned that. But so you talked about being kind and compassionate, like to your friends and your clients, like so like what does being kind and compassionate like mean to you? And like how does that play out like with clients and friends? Like what is that your meaning for that?
I guess there's two things to that. Like number one is just I've worked with some lawyers who really just didn't give a shit about them for clients. They were just like, they're eager to like get the client in and out, and they didn't want to hear the details. But unfortunately, like in this area, like we're dealing with some pretty personal stuff, and it's always about it's dealing with people who are having a rough time. So listening to clients is a really big thing. Like sometimes exactly, like sometimes I don't need to know every single in and out of what they're going through, but it's important to them to tell me, and that I know. So I listen, and I encourage them to talk to me, and it can be cathartic too to talk to somebody. Like we often try and get psychological counseling, but there often isn't. Sometimes it's not available or whatnot, and just talking to anybody can be a benefit. The other part of being compassionate is just looking at things through the eyes of your client and trying to understand what they do and don't understand. Like I really spend a lot of time explaining things. In Ontario, it's a very complicated system in terms of car accident injuries, at least, and it's so it's such a tough system to learn. Like even I know senior lawyers from different fields who would try and help their friend and had to handle their personal injury case pro bono, and they couldn't do it because it was just too complicated. So
that go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh no, I was just going to say, so clients who like one day they're just minding their business, the next day they have to understand like the laws are relating to motor vehicle accidents in Ontario, the very complicated laws. It's daunting. So I try and do my best to spend a lot of time just explaining things and making them understand and figuring out like where's the what's missing, because very often if sometimes they'll be reluctant to make a decision, and understanding like where they're coming from is important.
So that this brings me to a point. Like what would you like? What do you think it's important for plaintiffs to know about car accident claims?
That it's a lot more complicated than it seems. So, I mean, I could spend probably a week just lecturing on this, but one of the, it's really Ontario is, and I don't know, to be honest, to what extent it's similar to the US, but it's very, very complex. We have first off, we have 2 claims for every car accident case. Actually 3 claims. Property damage, which I don't really do and isn't really what we're talking about.
Right.
But you have a tort claim, so a traditional lawsuit where you sue the person who hit you for pain and suffering. And then you have a claim against against your own insurance company for benefits. I know in the States, some states do have no fault benefits, Um, I don't know how prevalent it is, but um, long story short, when it comes to the tort claim, there are so many restrictions and little things that people are not aware of. And the truth is, most people don't really care to know what's going on or how car accidents work until they're involved in a car accident.
Right.
But for example, most people are shocked to learn that there's, we call it a deductible, a statutory deductible of $40,000. So the way it works, it's approximately $40,000, sorry, and it goes up every year with inflation. So it's not a traditional deductible, though. The way it works is, if you went to a trial and the jury, let's say, gave you less than that deductible, you would walk away with nothing. You have to get over that deductible. You have to get over $40,000 in order to get even $1. So if a jury says, we're going to give this guy 30,000 because we think he's injured, but not that seriously injured.
Does he actually get 30,000 or no?
Not if that's the award. However,
that's ridiculous.
If they give him 80,000, then he'll get about 30,000.
So they could give him 1 or 39,000.
Or sorry, not 30. Sorry, I mean 40.
So they could give him 1 or 39,000. Doesn't matter, right?
Exactly, 100%.
So what's the point?
I mean,
you don't make the rules.
No, exactly. And there's ways of getting around it, but it's one of the reasons why it's important to have somebody who knows what they're doing, because it's bizarrely complex. Like,
right.
And I'm just scratching the surface with the way there's a whole series of different rules that protected defendants get the benefit of. So protected defendant is anybody who causes a car accident who's a driver, owner, or at the scene of an accident. And that deductible I mentioned is one of the many things. The other thing is you're actually only entitled to 70% of your past lost income until the date of trial. Just think about that. For no reason. It's not like you get it somewhere else. You're just automatically not allowed to have 30% of the income you lost because somebody else hit you and injured you.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
It's bizarre. So anyways, I could go on and on. Like there's lots of ways that.
Well, you obviously know your stuff. Like you've been doing this for a while. Like I would refer anybody to you over in Toronto because you obviously know your stuff. So, we appreciate you shedding some wisdom on us with that. So like a couple more questions here. Like, so I guess there's been like a recent trend of jury trials being changed to non-jury trials. Is that like a thing there? Do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's been good for the time being. I mean, the way it works in Ontario is that, and there's been some recent changes under the simplified procedure rules, which is if you're suing for $200,000 or less. But the regular rules, if a party wants to have their case heard by a jury, they file a jury notice. And it doesn't matter if the other party doesn't want a jury. I mean, there's some exceptions where you can get a court to strike it. But for the most part, if a party files a jury notice in a car accident case, the case is being heard by a jury. Now, the reason that you don't want a jury on, at least a lot of plaintiffs don't want juries, is because they're not told the whole story. That deductible I mentioned,
right?
Like the 40,000 they have to overcome. The judge and the lawyers aren't allowed to say a word about it, so they don't know that their award is going to be butchered and that they're going to, be giving the plaintiff less than they intended. Like they're thinking, oh yeah, this guy deserves 80,000, for example, not getting 80,000, but they don't know that.
Right.
So there's a lot of reasons why jury trials are very complex, and as well, there's well, anyways, I mentioned how there's lots of ways that protected defendants get benefits. So that's essentially it, and it's very easy to make a person look like they're not they don't deserve compensation when in fact they do. So it's unfortunately a very, very challenging thing to run a jury case in a lot of these cases, especially, you know,
I bet.
if the guy or girl is paraplegic, it's
Do
a
you
different
do your
story,
own
but
jury selection?
yeah.
Okay. What were you going to say about paraplegic? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, if you have a case involving like somebody who is like rendered paraplegic because of an accident, like, I mean, you don't really worry about the same type of stuff, but you know, when you're dealing with cases involving chronic pain and soft tissue injuries, it's very, very hard to succeed because of all these restrictions. So having a non-jury trial isn't, you know, often a way to get a fairer shake on the case.
Okay. You know, I could tell by the way you talk, like you're really passionate about what you do, and I really like love that in an attorney, and I think it's incredible. So like speaking about selecting an attorney and like a client, like how do you think like attorneys and clients should like look at each other in turn? Like you want to take a certain client on, and what do you think vice versa? Like somebody should look at when they're selecting their attorney.
I guess, you know, obviously fit is an important thing. I mean, it applies to everything, like from, you know, like getting a new job to, you know, dating somebody. You know, like you want to work with somebody who you're going to work well with. So
how do people
being
tell
on the
that
same,
when you're picking a lawyer? Like, how do you tell that?
I mean, it's obviously a very, you know, subtle factor, but you know, you get a sense of the way the person talks to you, for example. You know, some lawyers are dismissive and they don't really care, like I said earlier, about how, you know, like some lawyers just don't give a shit about what you're going through, and you know, if that's something that's important to you, you can get a sense of how the person's talking to you. And you know, over promising is another one that I've seen a lot of, unfortunately. And you know, I personally do my best to just be as upfront and clear as possible. And you know, if an issue comes up in a case, like I want to tell the client right away. I don't want to wait 2 years so that he or she doesn't bug me.
No, I mean,
and then you know, I'll tell them at the end of the day when, you know, we're in, you know,
I feel like the biggest complaint you hear about attorneys is like they don't communicate. That's one of the biggest complaints. You know, they're not telling, because it's a very, you know, usually when you have to hire an attorney, it's a very stressful time. And so you want to, you know, it's a huge issue in their life, but, you know, to the attorney, it's another day at work. So like you need an attorney. You seem like you're the type of person that, you know, you got to stay in touch with the client, you know?
Yeah, I do my best. I mean, I try and keep up. You know, some clients require, you know, like almost weekly or daily communication. Some are, you know, I need to touch base with them once a month just to see how things are going. I mean, that's another important thing. Just like you said, like regular communication and just regularly touching base and seeing how things are going. Because especially, you know, we're dealing with people who are injured, so you want to see like how they're progressing and how, because it also has a huge impact on the case. I mean, if somebody's recovering well, you might say, okay, well, you know, but this is a case we should really settle ASAP. If they're recovering too well, and then if it's, you know, if they're recovering poorly, then there might be something we need to do to, you know, assist them, and just, you know, some kind of service we can help provide them through their accident benefits claim or somewhere else.
That's awesome. So, Josh, so what else do you want to tell us about your law firm? Like, how long have you been in business by yourself?
We just hit the 6-month mark.
Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
How's it going? Are you happy that you've done it, or like, how's it going? And
I'm really happy I did it.
Good.
I think everybody who starts a firm is really nervous when they start, because they don't know. Like, I actually started with 0 clients because it was really important to me that I maintained good relationships with my former employers.
Right. So you didn't take
from
them.
I didn't take one client, which from what I know, at least, is pretty rare occurrence. So I really didn't know what was going to happen. But in 6 months, I've got about 150 clients now. So, and it's just from being nice to people, honestly. It's just from being
150 clients?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Congratulations.
it's just like,
Josh.
it's also, the other thing I just want to say that I think is a good moral of the story is part of, I've always treated everybody nicely, like no matter who the person is. And
Yeah.
I think being nice really goes a long way. Like a lot of people who've sent me files are just sending me because they want to help me, because I was always really nice to them and, without expectation. So
Right. Without
being nice goes a really long way in this life.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you. I think that's excellent work. And I hope Petunia and Gus are doing well too, somewhere up there.
They are. Petunia actually had an emergency last week.
These are Josh's dogs for all that are listening, right? So
sorry?
They're your dogs.
Oh, sorry.
For everybody.
Yeah, my dogs, my
what kind of
babies.
dogs are they?
Petunia's a Shih Tzu and Gus is a Dachshund, a miniature Dachshund. So Petunia had a very severe case of gastroenteritis, and we had to run to the emergency vet at like 10 p.m. last week, and she had to spend the night there. It was okay. She got over it pretty quickly. She's got an iron stomach, but occasionally it meets something that it can't handle.
Know the feeling. All right. It's well, Josh, is there anything that we left out that you would like to tell the Lawyer Stories community today?
No, it was really great being on, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this was awesome.
And,
how can people get in touch with you?
So I give all my clients and friends my cell phone number. So feel free to give me a call at 647-286-5365, or you can always email me at joshua@jgoldberglaw.ca.
That's great. Or you could contact at lawyer_stories. Benny Gold will get you the info and put you in touch with our boy, Josh Goldberg. Everybody, Josh, stay right there. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Had a great time tonight with Joshua Goldberg. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.